This is a video for my future viewers. On the 4th of May 2022, and I know that eventually this channel will become successful. I have just understood an idea, I guess. I discovered Hegel, I think January or February 2018. I already vaguely knew about Hegel. I already had books about Hegel because of Marxism, but I had never been really interested in Hegel. I knew that he was a very complex thinker, but in January 2018 I experienced a higher degree of reality, maybe. And when I looked back on my path, which had led me to this spiritual experience, I noticed that it looked like the phenomenology of my own mind. And that's how I started to become interested in Hegel. And I've just realized that during the entire year of 2018, beginning at the end of January, beginning of February, but until the end of the year, and the entire year of 2019, so for almost 2 full years, I've spent several hours each day reading about Hegel. So I've spent 2 full years with Hegel trying to decipher and understand the mind of Hegel. And I've started reading Hegel again for the past 3 months. I had stopped reading Hegel between 2020-21, although a few moments I picked a book here and there, but yeah. So I have spent more than 26 months of my life reading Hegel several hours each day to try to understand what he talks about. And there is this quote from the Exegesis, folder 26, February 1977. I learned to my delight that most of what I experienced, saw and learned in March 74, it refers to a mystical experience that Philip K. Dick apparently had, confirms Hegel, and I am thus a Hegelian. I discovered this sentence probably in March, February 2018, and when I realized this, how could a mystical experience in the 1970s confirm a thinker who was dead 150 years prior, basically? How is that possible? And I have spent also a lot of time reading this book, so I lost myself in the mind of Hegel and in the mind of Philip K. Dick, not the novels, the Exegesis, but maybe the novels also. But Philip K. Dick himself believed that he was lost in the mind of Hegel, partly. And when I discovered Hegel, really, so to speak, and then Hegel said, but what is real? You have to distinguish Realität, Dasein, Existenz, Wirklichkeit. I will publish the video so that people might understand Hegel someday. When I discovered Hegel in the early month of 2018, I had so much admiration for him. So much admiration. And I already said this, but I behaved like a child who admires his father, or a teenager who admires his hero. I admired Hegel intensely. That was devotion, and I wanted to imitate him. So he says, picture thinking, as the English call this, is inappropriate. You have to elevate yourself in the realm of pure thought. Everything has to be systematically derived, organized, logically deduced. Everything has to be ordered. Everything has to be scientific. So I believed him, and I abandoned the ideas not in the Hegelian sense, but the representation, the mental determination, as he would say, that I had gathered on my own path, my own experience. I thought, Hegel says the individual is worthless, picture thinking is inappropriate, it's arbitrary, everything has to be scientific. So I discarded my own experience because I trusted Hegel, and I tried to structure my mind onto the mind of Hegel, but he was way too smart for me. So he made me lose all confidence in me, in my own experience. When he keeps repeating the individual is worthless, empiricism is worthless, basically. He doesn't say this, but that's the broad representation, that the individual is contingent. I could not have understood Hegel without my individual experience. And then he says, yeah, but the concept becomes singularized. So he contradicts himself constantly. But this is what Hegel does. He contradicts himself constantly. The standards set by Hegel are simply too high for my empirical self. So Hegel, I admire him, but he constantly makes me feel dumb and worthless. So I am in this toxic relationship, I guess. And the reason why I am making this video is because now that I have understood that I have to share my ideas with my own images, my own views, because Hegel already exists. And if I wanted to talk like Hegel, I would say that existence comes out of the ground, so Hegel comes out of the ground. But people can buy his books. I cannot I cannot be Hegel as people envision him and as I have envisioned him, like this 19th century German philosopher who teaches philosophy. I cannot be this because it has already existed, so to speak, even if it is kind of delusional. But I had a view of knowledge that I try to represent myself with my own limited cognitive abilities, like the solar system. The sun would be the truth, and the various planets orbiting around the sun would be moments of the truth, and you had to go from one planet to the other and get closer to the sun. But it takes patience, the patience of the negative, as Hegel would say, probably. And that I realized that people who are orbiting around Neptune or Jupiter or Venus or Earth or Mars or whatever, they may be closer or more far off from the sun, but if you are in the core of the sun, if you try to speak to someone who is on Jupiter or Venus or wherever, he will not understand what you say because the distance is just too far. And this was the representation that I had about knowledge. And now, almost 4 years later, more than 4 years later, I realized that this was appropriate, because if I tried to express my view in this picture thinking with a better vocabulary here, I have not worked properly to express this idea, but people might understand the idea that you have to go step by step. If you get too close to the sun too fast, you burn yourself. Like Icarus in the myth, he tried to fly to get close to the sun, and eventually the heat of the sun melted his wings and he fell into the water and the ocean. That's what has happened to me. I wanted to go directly into the core of the light, I guess, and it was simply too brilliant. And when you look at the sun too long, you burn your eyes and you become blind, so you end up in the dark, basically. And Hegel would say, that's the positive and the negative, that's dialectical, whatever. I have tried to imitate Hegel. That's the story of the past 4 years of my life. And there were moments when I said to myself that Hegel is God, basically. So, but how can God be the product of a 19th century German thinker? So basically, Hegel controls God. God is whatever Hegel says God is. That's strange. But then there are moments when I say, no, actually it's Hegel who is an idea in the mind of God. So God has the upper end and Hegel is just subordinate. But I don't know. I will lose, because unconsciously I have been trying to compete intellectually with Hegel, but you cannot defeat Hegel, I guess. Um, so I will lose, although, yeah, but I I will at least have the consolation, maybe, that losing is kind of embarrassing, but if you lose to someone like Hegel, you might say, well, at least my opponent was smart. I didn't think of him as an opponent. I thought of him as a hero, a father figure, but yeah. Whatever Hegel is, um, um, I gotta respect the intelligence, I guess.